Hi and welcome to Be Inspired with Dominic, and today I'll be making a shot glass holder because we have these nice shot glasses, and if you keep showing them, we have these nice shot glasses, and if you keep showing them around, you're bound to drop them. So a shot glass holder before we run out.
First, I cut my stock to size. Here you can work with a 2x4 or 2x6 or whatever dimensions you have on hand. Next, I cut them on the miter saw at an angle. Then comes the glue up. Place the pieces next to each other with the outside facing up and add a long strip of tape to it. Flip them over and apply and spread glue to the gaps. Then you can take the ends and fold the whole thing up. If you work with perfect accuracy, you can do the whole thing all at once. I for one like to allow for minute deviations from perfect and thus did both halves separately, taped to a board to keep them in shape. To take these minor imperfections out of the equation, I make a risky cut on the table saw. Well, I considered it not that risky, but you should be the judge of that in your own shop. I did it this way so that with the centerpiece running against the fence, I have a reasonable reference that both sides will be on the same plane after the cut. Using a disc or a belt sander would work as well, but since you usually don't have discs or belt long enough to cover both pieces at once, you'd have to be very precise. And if you could do that, you could probably do it right from the start. Now I glue the halves together and use a long clamp to apply pressure. Just make sure not to over tighten it, because that will probably break the halves in half. My next idea was to use splines, not just to make the ring stronger, but also to make it look somewhat barrel-like. Which, spoiler alert, did not work out quite as planned. For that, I make a shallow cut all the way around the outside of the ring, by pushing it through a lowered blade on each side. To make the splines, I cut up some wood, but I need to get it thinner than the gap of my non-zero clearance insert. So I improvise a zero clearance situation using a strip of OSB clamped to my table saw table. This allows me to cut these splines to the width of the saw curve without having to hold them in awkward and outright dangerous ways next to the blade. To gain strength from the splines, they have to cross the glue joints on the main piece. I put glue in and use a rubber mallet to convince them into place. The problem is that there's no way to avoid a gap where two splines meet, and, spoiler alert again, it did not matter much because I had not picked contrasting wood. Before we get to that though, I had to shape the barrel. I started on the bandsaw where I took the excess splines off. Then I used the miter saw where I could put one face against the fence and take off part of a corner with a blade. That was not much fun and not really effective, so next time I would go straight to the drum sander. A belt sander with a coarse belt for shaping would do the trick as well. After getting the thing reasonably round, I tilted the table to create a bevel on the outside. You could also freehand that with a belt sander. I then went over the outside surface with a random orbital sander and finer grits to make the surface look better. This is also when I noticed the gaps. But instead of paying them attention, I went to the shelves. I wanted to use up some scraps, so I cut these from cheap plywood from a packing crate. I spaced them to accommodate the shots, with one shelf space a little bit bigger than the others. The board that sits in the center I just cut to the right length right away. For the others I used a bevel gauge and some fiddling to figure out the required angle. And I did not just cut it on the boards themselves, but also on other pieces of wood to act as additional holders. I sand them round and glue them to the frame. To hide the edge of the plywood and to make it easier for shot glasses not to fall down, I add a ledge made of solid wood. To make gluing them in place a little easier, I cut a groove into them. Finally, I take care of the gaps by mixing glue and sawdust. It works to physically cover the voids between the splines, and it looks okay in terms of color. The good thing, and the reason why these gaps don't matter at all, is that my superior has decreed that I should use stain on the piece to make it fit better with the rest of the living room furniture. Here I use 2 pieces of mounting band, which I can put screws through to keep it on the wall. Finally, all shot glasses have a new home. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please share it with your friends. And if you're making something based on this, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you for watching, and as always, remember to be inspired.